Greetings, inventive viewers, and welcome to Golden Age Technology. We are honored to have a very special Australian marine biologist and adventurer with us today, Mr. Lloyd Godson, who was the winner of the 2007 Australian Geographic Adventurer of the Year Award for staying 14 consecutive days in a self-sufficient and self-sustaining underwater habitat called BioSUB. During this period, BioSUB was submerged in The Pit, a former rock quarry site that is 2 hectares in surface area with a maximum depth of 16 meters. It is Australia's only dedicated occupational dive site and is located in the state of New South Wales. Despite his very busy schedule, Mr. Godson recently granted Supreme Master Television an interview regarding his innovative work. He now recounts his journey that eventually led him to realize his dream of sharing the wonders of marine science with Australian students through the BioSUB Project.
So as a young kid, I was always fascinated with the sea, and over the years I had the strong desire to go on and study marine sciences at university, and eventually I fulfilled that goal and studied marine biology, and I also studied as a commercial diver and worked as a commercial diver for some years as well. Once I finished my studies, I spent a lot of time traveling the world and getting some experience from different corners of the world. Eventually I found myself in New Zealand studying Antarctic science. There I met my wife and we came up with the idea of doing something interesting for children in classrooms. And the idea was to bring some scientists or research from the field into the classroom using internet technology so that children could share in the work that scientists were doing in some remote locations. And this was kind of inspired from my travels around the world and my trip to Antarctica, and I wanted to be able to share this with children. And this led to the first project that we did called the BioSUB Project.
How did it start?
The concept of the BioSUB Project was to build a self-sufficient, self-sustaining underwater habitat, and I wanted to live inside the habitat for 2 weeks, and I wanted to turn the habitat into an underwater classroom. So we installed wireless internet so that I could do talks with classrooms across Australia, and it was part of a competition that was run by the Australian Geographic Society. It was called Live Your Dream, and my dream was to live underwater and to inspire young children in Australia to go on and study marine sciences and engineering. And turned out quite well. I think I spoke with over 1,000 school students across Australia from underwater.
How is it possible to live underwater?
There was 3 ways I had oxygen, and one of them was quite experimental and was developed by some school kids in the United States. They were working on a thing called the biocoil, which was using green microalgae to produce oxygen and remove CO2 from the atmosphere. And this was a really good example of how man and nature work together in a closed environment underwater. So I had microalgae producing some of my oxygen and removing some of my carbon dioxide. The algae was constantly circulating throughout the coils, which meant that I had to have the lights on 24 hours per day in order for them to keep on photosynthesizing.
How is ventilation possible in a container?
I had a constant flow of air, so my old air was getting pushed out the bottom of the habitat and then it would bubble up to the surface. I did have some oxygen also coming from the surface, and I had a compressor floating on the habitat above, which was battery operated, and that was charged up with the methanol fuel cell and the solar system as well.
Besides having an adequate supply of oxygen inside, power is also a critical need for an underwater human habitat.
In general, I'm trying to do things in a more efficient and more environmentally friendly way, and so if I was going to build an underwater habitat, I didn't want it to be something that was destructive to the underwater environment, given that I had spent some years studying protecting the marine environment. So the concept was to make it as environmentally friendly as possible. This involved using, for example, I think 16 solar panels mounted on the surface of the water. We also used some innovative technology such as fuel cells to power the habitat. I also made from scrap metal a human-powered bicycle, which was a way of charging up my laptop, which is how I spoke to the kids from underwater. So it was quite fascinating for them. I had to, get on my bike and ride for a couple of hours in order to make my presentations. So the whole thing was kind of operated without the use of any fossil fuels. We had several hundred kids visiting. We had an intercom system set up so that they could come to the surface and press the button and talk to me underwater.
Cool.
And I had a video camera inside. I could give them a little tour of my underwater house and show them how the bike worked, how I generated power, how the solar system connected to my underwater house. I showed them how occasionally I had visits from turtles and in my entrance.
After these messages, we will hear more from Mr. Lloyd Godson about the intriguing BioSUB underwater habitat. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television.
The idea there was to say, look, if I can live underwater in this container that was made from scrap material for 2 weeks, then we can all do something a bit better on the surface to live in a more sustainable way.
Welcome back to Golden Age Technology on Supreme Master Television. Mr. Lloyd Godson, the winner of the 2007 Australian Geographic Adventure of the Year Award, now describes some additional technical aspects of his BioSUB underwater human habitat.
How does it work with the pressure?
Yeah, this is one of the big challenges of underwater living. There's basically two types of underwater habitats. One is ambient pressure and one is atmosphere habitats. Ambient pressure, that means that the air inside the habitat is at the same pressure as the water surrounding you. So if you're at 10 meters, the air you're breathing is double the pressure of the air we're breathing now. And this presents a lot of problems because the maximum safe depth that you can return to the surface after spending the night would be something like 5 or 6 meters. So the other alternative is to have normal atmospheric pressure. But this means that there's a lot more engineering challenges to make the habitat withstand the pressure difference between inside and outside. Probably the best alternative then would be something like a floating structure where you have an opening to the surface directly, so the air is coming from the surface inside the habitat.
And how are necessities provided, such as food, waste management and water?
Yeah, it's a tough one because we were working on a very small budget, and it was more of a demonstration and an educational teaching tool than something, a high budget kind of experiment. So the waste management was very rudimentary in this case. Some was recycled to fertilize the algae, for example, and provide a nitrogen source. Waste was just removed to the surface, and some of my food was delivered by volunteer divers, and water. There's obviously a long way to go before you close the loop completely, but as a beginning, it was a nice start.
Further drinking water was supplied by an atmospheric water generator called the Dragonfly M18, produced by the Air 2 Water Corporation. The device takes the moisture in the air and transforms it into pure water. The BioSUB also had various features to protect Mr. Godson. To ensure he was breathing clean air at all times, a Drager XAM 7000 sensor was used to monitor the gas levels inside BioSUB. A CASPA, or carbon dioxide self-powered absorber device, was used to remove CO2 from the air.
Where else could this technology be used?
Anywhere, really. I mean,
Yeah.
all of the things I used in the underwater habitat to make it more sustainable, there's no reason why they couldn't be used right here to make your home more efficient. As I mentioned, I just had just standard solar panels that you'd use on a house. I had a pedal power generator, which people do use in their home. There's a few people I know who pedal in the morning to contribute to their battery system, which adds to the solar system to make their house run off human and solar energy.
As climate change is dramatically changing our environment, could underwater or underground living be a solution for sheltered living? What is your view on this?
Well, I've always been very fascinated by the idea of living both underwater and underground. I see many obvious advantages, especially to living underground. I mean, underground, it's a lot more easier to accomplish. You know, I'm a strong believer in underground houses and I really believe in this concept. When we build our own place, I would like to think that it would be at least partly underground for energy saving reasons.
How can it save energy to have your house underground?
Well, you're tapping into the natural thermal properties of the earth to keep your house cool in summer and warm in winter. I mean, it's been done for centuries, and it's only been recently that people started putting up these sort of square houses. There's been a lot of improvements with insulation in the last couple of decades, but I think for me, I like the idea of an underground house because it puts you in touch with nature a lot more, and it makes sense.
We thank Mr. Lloyd Godson for sharing with us his inspirational work on the BioSUB underwater habitat. Next week, in part 2 of our interview, we will look at another one of his fascinating projects called Life Amphibious, a human-powered submarine. For more details on Lloyd Godson and his projects, please visit www.biosub.com.au and www.lifeamphibious.com. Pleasant viewers, thank you for being with us today on Golden Age Technology. Next is Vegetarianism, the Noble Way of Living, following noteworthy news. May our Earth be blessed with ever more beautiful tomorrows.
For more details, please visit www.suprememastertv.com/GAT.